Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is someone who is so special to me, as I actually had the opportunity to work with her one-on-one in my food relationship healing and discovery program after she won her pro card, and I'm so excited to have her on. We actually have a lot to talk about today, and this girl is so smart. Seriously, when I was prepping this episode, I was like, this is going to be good. So I know she's going to have a lot to share, and not only is she new to the bodybuilding world, but she won her pro card at her second show ever. And she has a passion for empowering women as she has overcome struggles in her life and seeks to spread the knowledge to others. And she does this in her work as an online coach for lifestyle clients and athletes with the tailored coaching method. Welcome to the show, Caroline Ofenstein. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Yay, good. Well, thank you for joining us. We're doing it on video because spontaneity strikes.
Because why not?
Why not? So you guys are listening to this and you normally listen to it. I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel as well, unless for whatever reason we change our minds, something goes horribly wrong. No, just kidding. That'll be on celestial_fit. And then all the show notes too, guys, just a heads up, you can find a complete breakdown of every single episode and exactly what we cover on celestial.fit/podcast. So if you guys are looking for those episode breakdowns, what was said when, that's a good place to look. Caroline will have her own section. So with that said, I got to ask you, what is something you do or ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
Right before I go on stage, I like to do some visualization work, which I know I've heard several of your guests say that. And so I'm strongly on team visualization.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just so powerful to, first off, take your mind off of like being nervous. Mm-hmm. And so like build that confidence and just see yourself flawlessly presenting your routine and crushing it so that you step on stage like, I got this. I already did it in my head. Let's go.
Yes, like they say, your brain and your body doesn't know the difference. So if you've already experienced it in your mind, your body's going to know how to actually carry that out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know you use visualization a lot, actually, leading into your program. That's something I want to talk to you about. But before we even get into that, I just want to know, like, what it was that led you to even start competing in general. Because you had a background as an athlete and then you got into competing. So how did that evolve?
Yeah, so I was just hardcore drinking the CrossFit Kool-Aid for years. That's kind of how I got into fitness, was through CrossFit. But kind of had some things happen, blessings in disguise, that I switched gears and actually had left the CrossFit gym I was coaching at. And my nutrition coach at the time, who's now my colleague, Cody, he was like, well, why don't you just take this as an opportunity to go all in on bodybuilding? Because I had been slowly like adding in bodybuilding style workouts to complement my CrossFit. Because as many people know, it's a very high intensity sport. And so if you don't take time for recovery, you will totally burn out. So I was already kind of easing down. And then that big change happened. And I was like, you're right. Like, let's just try to gain some muscle. Like, let's spend the next 6 months, pushing calories, pushing my bodybuilding workouts and see what happens. And so at that time, I wasn't even sure, like, if I wanted to compete, but I just wanted to see how my physique would change if I totally changed how I was training and tried to push calories a lot and just put on size. And so as I was kind of in the thick of things, I was like, you know what, I have got to take this all the way and just see what happens, because I would have people once in a while kind of ask me about competing or like what that would take. And I'm like, if I'm going to ever give people advice on this, I better just do it myself. and go through the whole process. So that's kind of how I started to make that transition. And then I was like, let's just go for it and see what happens. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. The fact that you actually took the time though to like eat more and grow, nobody does that. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but most people go into this sport like, all right, time to cut. Let's get on stage. I know I started that way. And I was like, you kind of go into it with this mentality of getting super lean, not so much growing to get to the point where you need to be. And before you got into competing, does this mean you were following like a macro or calorie diet?
yeah. So originally, like when why I got into nutrition was because I was doing a lot of CrossFit. I had an athletic based job at the time. I was a raft guide in Colorado, and CrossFit is still kind of, but back in the day was even more so like very focused on paleo and low carb, which doesn't make any sense because it's a performance sport and we need carbs to perform.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was kind of on that paleo bandwagon, and I was like, God, why do I always feel like crap? Like, why can't my workouts, like, why aren't they getting better? Like, why do I feel like I'm running on empty? So that's when I started studying nutrition and got, precision nutrition certified. I've done a couple courses through NCI, the Nutritional Coaching Institute. And that's kind of when I started learning more about macros and like paying more attention than on how much you're eating instead of just eating, quote unquote whole foods, but actually how much. And so yes, I guess a long answer to your question.
No,
I
I
did
love
already
that.
kind of have that background in calories and macros when I kind of got into things. And it's funny that you said like it was good that I put on muscle first, but that's only because I had previously dieted. And I was like,
Interesting.
like I told my coach at the time, Cody, I was like, why do I look so skinny? Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was, athletic and stronger, but when I dieted down, I was like, I'm skinny, and I wasn't really pumped about it. So that's why I did end up taking that time to try to get bigger, which for me isn't really that big, but I tried for a while.
No, it showed like you have a lot of muscle on your frame. Like you obviously grew and it paid off.
Yeah.
Did you feel like when you left CrossFit that you were going to miss it, or were you ready to move on from that?
I definitely was scared.
Yeah.
I was just scared because the change happened very quickly. And I didn't, I was kind of like lost because CrossFit was my competitive outlet. And so that's kind of another reason I wanted to actually get on stage, was because I wanted to compete in something again.
Yes.
So I was really nervous about just what it would take. Like I knew nothing. I still feel like I don't know very much because I'm so new to the space, but yeah, I was nervous, but I also just was like, let's do it,
Yes, that's so true. I think sometimes we have to just take those leaps of faith, and they can be really scary, but when we're being called to do that, it's like the best thing ever. And for you, it really paid off. You hit the competition scene, you swept all your classes, which is huge. And then after that, you were like, all right, let's go to South America, compete with pro cars. So like at what point did you decide like, yeah, let's go and compete for the pro card? Now it's like your second show.
That was really funny actually, because so I prepped with a coach, a local coach for my first show. And, like I said, I didn't really know much. I just did whatever he said basically. And like we talked about before, I did some visualization and manifestation work heading into it. And I was confident because, I was new to bodybuilding, but I had been lifting and doing CrossFit for like 5+ years. So I had a good base.
Right.
But I didn't really know what to expect. And I went into it with the mentality of one and done. Like, I'm just going to do this and then I'll move on and do the next thing. But it was really fun. The people I met were so cool. I feel like I learned about this whole other world of fitness that I never knew about. But obviously, it went well too. So that like helped me, have a little boost. But actually, funny enough, like the couple weeks following that show, I had started my reverse diet and stuff, and we were creeping into the holidays because that show was early October. So over the holidays, dieting again was not on my mind, of course.
Yeah.
And I had actually given my coach notice that like, hey, I'm just going to be done with coaching. I'm going to just chill for a bit. And then like, it was probably only like 2 days that went by. And I emailed him back and I'm like, just kidding. Like, if you think I have a shot at my pro card, I got to go for it. And so
Oh my
I
gosh.
literally quit for like a couple days and then changed my mind because I'm crazy.
Yes, but that's like probably what gave you that fire then to be like, all right, I'm committed for real.
Yeah, because I didn't really even understand like that when you win, your open class that qualifies you. And like, I didn't even think about that
Right.
because I was of the mentality like I was going to be done. So then, talking with him the following weeks, I was like, well, do you actually think I have a shot? Like, I didn't understand this whole national qualification thing. And he's like, yeah, I think you might as well try, there's no harm in trying. And I was like, you're right. And that's when he kind of brought up the Columbia thing. And I love traveling. So that sealed the deal for me. Cause I'm like, wait. I also get to go to South America with some cool people. Like, yes, sign me up. I will diet again for that for sure.
Yes. And then when you got there, though, that must have been a different traveling experience than you were used to.
Oh, yeah. I am very used to traveling and just having that as like an opportunity to try new things, whether that's food or drink, or, I typically will do some type of workout and just daily activity when I travel, but I definitely don't say no to
Yes.
indulging in other things. So that was super weird when I first got there, and it was peak week, when we
Yeah.
arrived. So I had packed my bag like full of food, which I found out that you're not actually supposed to do that. So in case anyone's traveling internationally, you're not actually supposed to bring food in.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
they like didn't check my bag and I didn't know until after, but I
Lucky
was like,
you.
sweet, I got through with all my meal prep.
Yes. Good thing
Um,
it was you and not someone else with
I
actually
know,
something to be concerned about.
I know. I'm like, sorry. But that was really nice because I had, like stocked up on things, and my husband came with me. So that was also weird because like he, wanted to go out and get, the fun local beers and, try different foods. And I was like, well, how about I just walk with you and like, I'll see the sights, but you can't really indulge in anything until after the show. So it was weird, but there was also a group of us there. So that was really, really helpful. It wasn't like me and my husband and me watching him like try fun foods and drink Colombian beers. It was,
Yes.
there were, I think 6 of us athletes there that were competing. So we all would kind of, heat up our chicken and rice together and that sort of thing. So that really helped.
Yes, it's nice because you're actually traveling with people who are on the same page as you with the same goal. Then you got to enjoy it afterwards. I would have been like, oh man, I don't want to be in peak week in another country. Like, no, I mean, yes, I don't want to say no to that kind of a thing, but like in terms of walking around and doing experiences, like you wouldn't catch me ziplining, like a couple days before
Right.
a show. So it's like you gotta, I guess it's a new experience first and foremost, and then you have to go out there and compete. As soon as you get there, a couple days later, you're ready to step on stage. So leading up to that show, you mentioned you did a lot of visualization, and something that I admire about you and appreciate about you is that you are very committed to the mental game. You are very committed to the visualization, the daily habits, those types of things that really add up. So walk us through what you were visualizing and how that made a difference when you actually got there.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to kind of dip their toe into this thing, I highly recommend the Insight Timer app, which is what I use for like my meditation app. And there's obviously a timer on there, but there's also a lot of awesome courses. And so leading up to a show, I like to pick a course that is on kind of manifestation or visualization. And what that looks like is you kind of have, 10 to 20 minutes a day where you sit down and you listen to the audio and it kind of walks you through the steps. So that's kind of what I practiced leading up to that show. And I remember the night before the show, I like took a half hour to myself and just sat down in silence and meditated and walked through everything. And literally everything. Like,
Wow.
you know, getting to the venue, where I was going to stand, where I was going to get ready, where I was going to leave my stuff. I visualized the announcer, who was a native Spanish speaker, like totally butchering my name, which definitely did happen.
Mm-hmm. How did you think that he would say it?
Oh my God. People say the craziest things, but I probably visualized him being like, Offenstein,
Yeah.
which is pretty much what happened. like just rolling over it.
Yes.
Which is okay, but you know, it's a hard one. But I visualized, you know, that me walking on stage, eye contact with the judges, because I knew who a couple of the judges would be. It was like Joe Pishkula and Tyler, and someone else who I'm forgetting. But, you know, like I visualized them sitting there making eye contact, doing my routine. I visualized the call outs, like everything up to me holding the pro card and getting interviewed after by like some Spanish TV channel, which I had no idea was going to happen, and it did happen.
That's
so like
awesome.
That was just like the craziest part of it all, is I was like, wait, what? Like they actually want to interview me? Like what's going on? Yeah. So it was really exciting, but I try to do that with any big event. You know, I think a lot of athletes do, but you can even do it with things going on in your daily life too.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it's so important to be so specific too in that visualization. Like you got to know what it's going to feel like. You got to know how fast your heart is racing, and how are you going to feel when they say your name? Like how big is your smile going to be? Like when I'm doing posing practice, I'll be in like the multi-purpose room at my gym, and I'll just be pretending like, yeah, obviously they just call me out first, so I'm not gonna stand there. Or like, hey man, no way, I don't need to practice that. I'm gonna be the first one out there. So, you know, that's like a good way of doing it, is like get it in your daily life, you know, visualize it, go through the motions, change your physiology so that it actually, you can feel what your body feels like in that moment. And something else that you talk about, which I really appreciate and think is awesome, is unconditional self-worth. And I think a lot of athletes struggle with placing their self-worth on a placing or on a pro card or a trophy, or when they're competing where, or maybe even comparing themselves to others. So break down unconditional self-worth in your point of view and how you see it as an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question.
Yes. Okay, well, let's do this
but
then.
No, I mean,
like how do you disconnect your self-worth from like your bodybuilding performance?
Okay, there we go. I can dig into that. I think, I mean, really just, you are so much more than that outcome. Like yes, you can relate your unique individuality to, you know, winning X, Y, and Z, but that's not really who you are. It's just like one thing that you have achieved, right? Just like if you fail, which I don't think failure is a bad word, but like, let's say you try something and it doesn't go as planned, you are not that outcome either, right? So you can't necessarily go just absolutely batshit crazy on like winning something, just like you shouldn't go into a total downward spiral of self-loathing if you don't see that result. So, and I try, this is something I practice a lot, like during prep and as I've gotten more into bodybuilding, is trying to just stay true to myself and just continue to be vulnerable and open, because I think that's another part of it, is that people get caught up in the glam and the comparison and the shreds, but that's also kind of just a temporary thing. That's not you. Like you are the person who works hard every day. You know, you are the person who maybe is a mom or a best friend, and you are X, Y, and Z career. Like there are so many other things that go into you, not just one positive or negative outcome, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Identity is one of like the biggest dictators of every action step we take in our life. And so if we put ourselves in this box of a certain identity, we're going to live in that box forever. We're going to pretend like there's no other box that we can jump into, but you can actually live in all these different boxes. You can have multiple, you know, and I think that people forget that. They like to just subscribe to one, or you know, we become laser focused as athletes too, which is really important, and it's necessary. There's going to be times where other things do, you know, other boxes aren't as, you know, I guess, prioritized. But at the same time, you know, we have to go me placing or me being deemed the best in this way, even a promotion at work, you know, or a certain level in your business, you know, those things aren't representations of you as a person. Now, can they teach us something about where we need to improve and how we could do better? Yes, but it's not to be a character issue as much as it is, okay, what's the next level? Like, what's the next level I need to get to, and what's the next best step for me to get there? And I think it's really cool that you've been able to say, you know, that a lot more than that. You know, there's a lot more to you than just this placing. And did you ever feel like your self-worth was starting to get too wrapped up in bodybuilding, or did you go into it with that mentality?
I think I did a pretty good job of detaching from the outcome, just because I knew so little about bodybuilding that I was like, yes, of course I want to win. And yes, I am practicing all of these, you know, literal exercises and like mental exercises to win. But at the same time, I was like, I'm learning a lot and this is fun and it's different. So I feel like that helped me kind of stay in my own lane, as far as kind of valuing myself still as an individual without thinking about other people. But that's not to say that I did not get caught up in comparison, because I definitely did.
Yeah.
You know, and I noticed that at both of my shows, like looking at women backstage and just being like, oh my gosh, you know, I have no chance with these people who are here. But that's so worthless, because you never know. You never know, like someone backstage could look totally different on stage, or they're posing, or Instagram, God forbid, we go down the Instagram rabbit hole. But even if you're comparing yourself to someone you know will be at your show, Instagram is not real. So like, that's that. It's just not real.
Yeah, there's a lot more fake than there is realness. And at the end of the day, it's not how you're looking on stage. You know, that's just a mini lead up. Like, for all of it's so funny to me too. Athletes be like, you know, you're gonna peak, you gotta peak perfectly, you gotta peak right in order to look your best up there. Oh, all these details matter. And they're the same people going online, hashtag 6 weeks out, like, what are these girls looking like? I'm like, wait, what happened to the whole you have to like have all these parts and pieces? Like, this Instagram post is not gonna tell us anything about whether or not this person is gonna place above you. Now, the only thing it could say is if you do look at them and you're like, that person's like way ahead of the game, they're probably gonna beat me. Well, yeah, now you've just docked your own self-worth, your own self-efficacy, your belief in yourself, your belief in your ability. All those things now are lessened. So yes, that's going to impact how you then show up in the gym. It's going to impact how you then choose to make choices around your nutrition. What do you believe you're worthy of? What are you deserving of? Now you've just lowered those things. Like, why even tempt fate? You know, do what you said is you're going to do and get it done. And like you mentioned earlier, you know, think about yourself on the level of like what kind of person you are day in and day out. How do you show up for yourself? Let that dictate how you feel at the end of the day. Are you proud of yourself? Did you do what you said you were going to do?
Right. Exactly. That is so much more important than like looking at someone else and being either jealous, or even the opposite end of the spectrum. You can be like, oh my gosh, I look so much better. But it's like, what? That's not really helpful either.
No, you're right. Because then what if then you start slacking and you don't even recognize that you're slacking?
Right. And it's like, yeah, it's just not important. You know, it's much more important the person you are day in and day out. And just like, I really like it when athletes say, you know, beating the last version of you, or beating the last package that you brought to stage. Like, that's a comparison I can get behind, because that's motivating, I think.
Yes, I agree. And especially in bikini, because it can look different, you know, completely different once, you know, one show to the next. So whatever beating your best self means, you know, at that stage, it makes sense. So I agree. I love it when athletes are asked, you know, like, what's your goal for this upcoming show? And they're like, be better than last time. I'm like, yes, that is the best answer ever, because it's like, can you show up in a better way? Like, can you actually tap into that next level version of yourself? Or are you going to regress, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I actually want to talk to you a little bit too about competing as a pro. First of all, what was your feedback, if you got any, after your winning your pro card?
I didn't get a lot of feedback at either of my shows, unfortunately, but the little feedback I did get after the Mr. Olympia South America was work on your back pose, because he said I was like a little too bent over, which I think is part flexibility and part of me overcompensating because I have a smaller lower body. And then his other comment was, I'm very tall. I'm like 5'9". So I'm like long and lean. And so he basically said, keep filling out your frame, like keep building, because you are long and lean. So you need a little bit more going for you.
Okay. So basically like build more muscle
and get better at posing.
Yes.
Yep.
Classic.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So taking that feedback now, did you ever feel pressure to immediately compete as a pro or compete as a pro at all? Like, did you feel pressure come over you?
Yes. Yeah. I actually was kind of shooting for, so the Mr. Olympia Amateur was February, and then I'm in Colorado. And so there's the Denver Mile High Pro was supposed to be in May. And so I was kind of letting my coach at the time talk me into that, even though my heart wasn't in it. Like the only reason I wanted to do that was because to get that pro feedback or whatever, and see how you stack up right off the bat. And because it was pretty local to me, but mentally I was spent, and physically. Like I did not want to prep again without getting my period back, because I've lost my period both times I've competed. And so I was nervous about that. I was nervous about health implications, but I kind of, so I let the pressure win and like signed up for that show. But so that being canceled, I hate to say this, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise for me because I actually got like a longer break. I've had a break for 5+ months now, when I was not going to have any break for like a year.
Yes. Oh, I know. And like, I'm thinking of how do I bring this up? I remember conversations with you that were very important.
Yes. You and I talked a lot about this.
Yes. So when I ask these questions, I'm like, I know, but like, I want everyone else to hear it. So I don't want you to feel like our time together, I didn't listen or I wasn't there for you. Cause like, I remember it vividly, but it's stuff I thought other people would benefit from. So I think, that pressure is real, whether you're an amateur or you're a pro, if you're, especially if you trust your coach, but you have this like little voice in the back of your head saying, don't do it. Or maybe a little voice saying, do it, and you're being surrounded by people saying, don't do it. And you're like, no, I have to do it. Just like you had originally, it's like, hey, I'm not going to compete again. No. If he thinks I can do it, I'm going to do it. And so similarly, it was like, I'm not feeling it. And yeah, blessing in disguise that it was canceled. That's for sure. There was a lot of health things that you just mentioned you really wanted to focus on. So some of that I definitely want to get into with you for sure. You were burnt out mentally and physically. So when you decided, okay, good, that show's canceled, I don't have to do it, what was next for you? Like, how did you then make the next best step?
That was kind of, I took that as a sign. Everyone listening is probably like, this girl's really hippy dippy. And I guess I am, but
oh no, girl, I love it.
Like, I literally was like, okay, are you kidding me? The show that I was like on the fence and just driving myself, and I'm sure my husband crazy, going back and forth about, is canceled. Like, obviously I need to take a second and just reevaluate my plan, which is something that I preach to all of my clients and I try to live by, but I wasn't living by it by signing up for another show immediately. But I'm a big believer in periodization and thinking about your year as a whole and choosing when to compete, or even just when to diet, when to build, because you can't just diet, and that is what I was doing, because it had been almost a year of basically prepping, show, break, right back into prep. And I was like, just take this as a second to step back and think about what you actually want to do. And honestly, my number one priority was getting my period back. And then also, like, I had issues, which you obviously know because we worked together, with binge eating during my prep for Columbia. And so I was like, why would I even go into another prep? Because it's just going to get worse. Like, I don't think I can get my mindset right in diet mode. Like, I think it's much easier, even though it's kind of never easy, but easier to work on that mindset stuff when you're not restricting calories.
Yeah, no, for
Surprise,
sure.
surprise. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to prioritize those two things. And then I also kind of felt like I wanted to work with a different coach and maybe make some changes there. So that's what I kind of used that pause to do.
It's so much easier to keep going. Like,
I
it's so
know.
much easier. Oh,
It's the
I don't
ego.
have to shine light on any of this stuff that needs to be addressed. Like, let me just leave that in it's like the laundry pile that keeps stacking up, and you're like, it's fine. It'll be put away
Yep.
eventually. And then soon you don't have any more clothing to wear. You're like, damn, like, am I gonna go, like, what am I gonna do? So I think that, this is a good opportunity for listeners. If you know you're going through this or you've been through this, you're not alone in it. A lot of people struggle with it. And I feel like I'm looking into a mirror. This is something that I dealt with too. And it's tough to pump the brakes and say, whoa, there's other things that do matter to me, there are other things that are important. And what you mentioned that's very hard to admit is not practicing what I'm preaching. And I truly believe in this. What I'm preaching is like, why am I doing it? Why am I not worthy of that message, that mission as well? And so I think it's really cool that, one, you're saying that, and then two, that you actually took action on it. Now, you mentioned you covered a lot of different things, and I do want to talk to you about how we work together, and specifically on your relationship with food, and focusing on getting you to a place where you had that piece so you could move forward with a prep and then future improvement season. So you were struggling with binge eating. What do you feel was the major difference between, and I'm totally using this now for like other people, like I'm totally gonna have you just preach for me.
Yeah, that's
I'm
okay.
like, guys, if you're gonna join my program, this girl's a good one to listen to. So what changed from when you started to after in terms of the relationship with food, or maybe how you looked at food?
As far as like during and after prep, or?
Like before we started working together, and then after.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, before I was, like I said, I had cheat meals on my meal plan, which I think was honestly a big driving cause of the issue, that I turned them into binge days, because I was like, well, it says cheat meal. Like, what else do you do on a cheat day? Like, what, make it crazy. So that was obviously driven by the restriction of prep, but then also kind of that negative mentality, I feel like, coming from my plan. And so that's kind of where I was when we started. And somehow, my body, I love it so much, and it's amazing because somehow it still kept up with that negative eating. And I did really well at the show, which is just crazy. And I almost, there is a small part of me that wishes I wouldn't have done well, because it made it harder to like reach out to you and be like, this isn't okay. Like, I do have a problem with this, because I was like, well, I also won, so maybe I should just sweep it under the rug. Right. So that kind of did make it harder, but I still knew, and I am a nutrition coach, and I knew that this behavior wasn't good and I couldn't sustain it. So that's kind of what made me reach out to you. And then honestly, like the slowing down, the journaling that we did, like the conversations that we had, just really made me, I guess it made my mindset be stronger than kind of that bully brain that is disordered eating, right? That's telling you kind of the negative side. What I got out of it was a lot of training your mind to be stronger than those thoughts that are telling you to restrict or to quote unquote cheat or whatever that may be. So that was kind of a big realization that I had.
I'm so glad. Like, I'm so glad you reached out, because it is hard, especially like you said, it's after a win, after you're doing well, after you're killing it. It's like, I don't need to address this. This is not as big of a problem as it feels like it is, because I have these reinforcements that are positive and telling me it's fine. It's not a big deal. But when we know what's best for us, and for you is from like a knowledge perspective, this isn't right. I can't sustain this behavior. I don't like the way it feels when I'm doing it. Okay, I deserve to change that. So what inspired you to actually, because I think some girls are held back from thinking of actually committing to that, right? So were you thinking about being in a better place, or were you just thinking about getting through that place?
I guess a little bit of both, because sometimes, especially if you're kind of like binging and restricting, that's not necessarily like something that's going to come up day to day, but it still is something that needs to be addressed, right? And that you need to work through. And for me, I was like, like we were kind of talking about earlier, I try to be as real as possible with my social media and just, my personality in general. And so I was like, if I don't try to figure this out now, and I try to do another prep, and this happens again, how am I supposed to be honest with clients that I have and tell them, how to get through these tough times if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not helping myself get through these tough times, which I don't think really anyone can get through that on their own. So it's not a weakness to ask for help or to say that, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. Like, I don't think that's a weakness at all. Like, if anything, it's only going to make you stronger long-term to try to actually dig in and solve the problems that you're having.
Yes, I could not agree more. We hire physique coaches, hire posing coaches, hire someone to make our suit. Girl, if you're struggling with your relationship with food, hire someone. Reach out for help. Talk to someone. Doesn't even have to be me, but get help because it's so important. It's like, if you truly want to go far in this sport, this is like one of my beliefs, right? If you want to go far in this sport, you have to have something that gives you that longevity to do so. We're always so focused on the next thing, next accomplishment. It's like we forget what's going to happen. Like you said, thinking, you used the word periodization, being strategic about what you're doing. It's like that goes for your mind as well. There's a certain like limit we hit, and yes, we can train our mind to push through those limits. Yes, we can train our mind to overcome them. But at what point do you say, I'm not actually training my mind, I'm just tolerating this? Like, this is now a new normal. And the more and more we reinforce that negative normal pattern, the stronger it becomes. Just like the more we reinforce the positive pattern, the stronger that becomes. And it takes a lot to reach out to help. But when you do, and you have no shame about it, and you just see it as, hey, this is actually what a champion does. A champion gets help in the weak areas. You don't see, I'm going off now, but you don't see like
preach, girl.
Yes. You don't see like other professional athletes saying, it's fine that, let's say like a tennis player, oh, it's fine that my backstroke is weak. Okay, well, guess what? You're going to lose when it comes time to hit like the main court. When you're actually competing, you're not going to do well. You're not going to perform. Why? Because you've left out a majority of your game. Saying like your mind is a majority of this game. And if you're not ready to play, that's fine. You don't have to play, but don't complain when you're losing or when you're not in it in a couple years, a couple months. It takes commitment. And not only that, but it takes conscious effort day in and day out. You saw that in the program. It's very intensive, but it's so that we develop those habits long term. And I think some girls, you mentioned earlier too, taking yourself out of a dieting phase. And by the way, thank you for your kind words about the program. I appreciate that, letting me go off just now. Which, by the way, if you guys are interested in that program, just go to celestial.fit/food-freedom. And all the information is there, or you can DM me on Instagram, celestial_fit. But, a lot of people go into their preps and they look at food and they look at competing, and they look at the food with competing as something that takes into the next physique or aesthetic, not so much the next function or performance or what's necessary to build the muscle, what's necessary to recover after those hard prep workouts. And so you have a background in nutrition, and I'm going to read my notes here because this question, the way I structure, I want to make sure I actually get it right. But yeah, so people forget how they want to feel, how they should feel, and how their body feels, or even what they need nutrient-wise. They're trying to make everything work, or they sacrifice things that can make a difference in their body's function, which is something you talk about on your page. I love your Instagram. It's amazing. So whether that's gut health or immunity or recovery, what do you think, or what do you usually help your clients with understanding that's important for them to consider in a diet day to day to account for the demands of an improvement season or the demands of a prep or cut or lifestyle,
Yeah. So like kind of like the basics of what I talk with
Yeah,
about
the
my clients, are you
basics.
asking?
Like, how do you actually approach nutrition and food for those different phases?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kind of what I like to do, which at Tailored Coaching Method, we kind of break a new client's plan up into phases. So we call it the primer phase, the progressive phase, and then the recovery phase. So anytime I'm writing a new client's plan, I will have that in their spreadsheet. Like, hey, we're going to start with what's called a primer phase. And, that's going to be a couple weeks of which pretty much all my clients, that phase is let's build a foundation. No matter what your goal is, if you want to do a lean gaining phase, if you want to diet and get shredded, we still need that foundation. And unfortunately, that's the piece that I feel like so many people are missing. And just to be clear, like I typically work with Gen Pop clients or like lifestyle clients, and I do have a couple athletes here or there, but 9 out of 10 women that come to me are doing 7 days of cardio. They're doing like 7 days of HIIT group fitness, Orange Theory, something, something.
Mm-hmm.
They're eating like maybe 1,000 calories, maybe less, and they have weight to lose. And so they come to me wanting to lose weight, but all of these things are totally maxed out. So those are the people that we take a longer kind of primer phase and we spend some time decreasing stress, which, dieting is a stress, working out is a stress, added cardio is a stress. Some of those can be good stresses, but chronically, that's not going to be good for your body. Your body's going to get kind of pissed off, start storing fat because it thinks it needs stored energy, So decreasing stress and then building up calories, because you obviously can't start a diet at 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 calories, right?
Oh my God, I
Us
can't
bodybuilders
imagine.
know that. I know, right? Can you imagine if your prep was like, now we're down to 1,000 week, 11 weeks out? It's like, are you kidding me?
I'll be like, all right, well, rest in peace.
I'm
I'm
out.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the building that foundation is going to always be the first step, no matter what your goal is. Like, let's just get some things dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
And food quality, of course, is going to be part of that. Like, what are you actually eating? Are you eating restaurant food 5 days a week? That's never going to be super accurately tracked. Or are you actually meal prepping, So that's kind of a big thing. And then when we switch over to the progressive phase, so that would be where we're going, 3 to 6 months all in on building muscle, or maybe we're doing like an 8 to 12 week diet of some sort. I guess just to keep things simple, like the underlying key things are going to be consistency and having some patience, which those are not sexy. Nobody wants to talk about them.
Marketing.
I know, right? It's tough when I don't have a cool fad diet to talk about, but that's just the reality, which thankfully,
Yes.
bodybuilders, they are such like, we're a great example of how to get that physique that, everybody wants, or however you want to say it. But bodybuilders know fat loss and they know physique changes. And I think it's because we are patient, because we think of things like, how do I want my physique to look next year, not 30 days from now? And we think about, doing that boring stuff day in and day out, like meal prepping, like tracking all of your food, making sure your hydration's on point, making sure you're getting sleep, hitting the gym and your cardio sessions, obviously. But we do all of those things consistently over a long period of time. And that is why bodybuilders have the best physique,
Yes.
which is really hard to tell to other people when they just want to do keto or do some type of crazy fasting, or like, whatever the next hot thing is.
Yeah, you can't, you go and tell someone that who's on Pinterest searching like watermelon bloat reduction, like it's not gonna happen. Like, we have to help people get to the mindset of someone who's patient, of someone who can be consistent, someone who believes they're worthy of that time, that investment in the time, the lifestyle change. Oh, you mean dieting doesn't have to be so hard and painful and annoying and fatty, FADDY. New
right.
word.
I got you. New word.
Yeah. So it's like, people don't know, but I don't blame them, like you don't. It's like they come to you because they want to change it. They just are like so sick and tired of what hasn't worked. And it's like, you're right. Bodybuilders are a great example of that. And I actually hadn't thought of it like that. Bodybuilders are thinking a year, 2 years, months, down the road versus your general population. You're looking at like you said, 30 days. And in that, you said something that I wanted to talk to you about, the little habits, doing them consistently. Walk me through your day with little habits. Like, what are the things you commit to day in, day out that maybe you don't actively think about anymore? Maybe you do, but that you know make a big difference in your success.
Yeah. So a typical day for me would be like, I always wake up and I try to not touch my phone except for tracking my temperature in natural cycles. Like if anyone doesn't track their cycle, it's very helpful and I would encourage it. But,
wait, can we stop there really quick? Why are you tracking why are you tracking your temperatures and cycles?
Oh, just so that because my dream as a bikini competitor, besides all the glory that everyone wants, is to keep my period through a prep. Oh my God. I would just like be so happy.
That is the dream. Like, I don't know. All the shit people want to say, oh, I wish I was in your shoes. I hate that. Like, girls will be like, oh, I wish I didn't get a period.
People say that to me too.
I'm like, girl, if you don't want your period, like, I'll take it. I'm ready.
I look way leaner when I have my period. I perform better, which that's been studied too. Like,
yes.
We can go into that later. But yeah, so I track my cycle just so that I can see, like, if I do start losing it, I know like the exact last date that I had it. And I know if I'm ovulating or not, because that's another thing, you can bleed, but you can have an anovulatory cycle where you don't even ovulate, and that will mess with your hormones, right? So
is that why you take your temperature?
Yes. Yeah. So I use the Natural Cycles app, which I really like. So I just wake up, it's, you take your morning temperature because there's usually a big dip when you ovulate. So that's kind of how they track it, and you can track other things on there. But
first thing in the morning, like right when your eyes open, you just pop that thermometer in your armpit, your mouth.
Yep. I just have an oral one. Yeah. So yeah. And then you just plug it on your phone. So I do that first thing, nerd moment. And then I try to just like, not open social media after that, which can be hard, but I try to just, put my temperature in, and then I go downstairs, I start coffee, and then I meditate. So like I mentioned before, I really like Insight Timer. Sometimes I'll just, oh my gosh, it's the best. And I have like mala beads that I'll, do mantras with and kind of thread
now
them
people would think you're a hippie.
I know, but that's what it is.
Messing with you.
They're really pretty, but
they are.
Yeah. So I do that. And then it kind of depends. I don't like to give myself strict rules on that. So sometimes it'll be like 20 minutes of meditation. Sometimes it's 5 or 10, whatever I feel like I need for the day. I don't do well when I have strict rules to my routine. I just like kind of a general guideline and then I follow it better. But so I do my meditation, and then I usually journal. So again, with that, like, I just want to write something down that's in my mind. I don't make myself do anything necessarily, but lately I've been doing kind of like manifestation statements. So I'll write, like, I am a pro champion this year, 2020. And then I'll try to do that for every area of my life. So I'll write like a positive statement that I'm trying to will into existence with like my career or, family or relationships. And I like to write gratitude too. So I'll try to pick at least, 3 things I'm grateful for. So that's kind of like my general journaling outline. And then I'm trying to think of little things that you asked about. Oh, I always drink a big glass of water with apple cider vinegar or lemon just to start my hydration goals off strong.
Yes.
So that would be kind of my little things. Oh, and then if I didn't the night before, I'll make sure all my food is tracked for the day. So typically I like to do that, before I go to bed or the day prior. But if I forget, I'll like double check my phone just to make sure I have my FitnessPal all dialed in for the day so that I don't have to worry about that. Because people think that's an extra step, or like that's a pain in the ass, but it saves you time as you go through your day and you're like doing 500 things. You don't have to think about like, oh, what should I make for lunch today? You know, it's just in your phone. You already know, you're good to go. So I definitely do that. And then I have, you know, gym, cardio, work stuff during the day. And then I try to give myself a hard cutoff time for work because I am a full-time online coach. I do work from home. It's easy to get into that trap of like, I'm just going to always work and I'm just going to, you know,
yes, guilty
so
as
productive,
charged.
but you're less productive.
Yeah. Oh, I know the drill.
Yeah. So I've been really good about that this year of giving myself a cutoff time. Like, no, do not answer another email. Like you're done. And that gives me, you know, more time for my relationships, more time to, you know, play with my dog or go for a walk or like whatever I want to do at night. So
what's your cutoff time?
I usually, depending on when I start, like if I get an early start on the day, I'll try to make it 4:00.
That's awesome.
And yeah,
what's
so that
an early
is
start?
really nice. Like 7, 6:30, 7.
Oh, okay.
Like if I'm working that early, then I try to make it 4. But yeah, because otherwise it just turns into working all the time, which I know you have a lot of the pros that come on this podcast also work for themselves. And I'm like, yeah, that's, if I was doing, you know, posing or something too, and then you have night clients, like, oh, yeah, that could get way too much. So I try to be hard and fast with those boundaries. But yeah, I guess those are kind of the little things. And then I go to bed way early because I'm such a grandma. So I'm in bed by like 8:30 or 9 for sure every night.
That's great though. Like the fact that this is what I think, these are the types of conversations I think are important, are like, what are the little things? Because those are what add up. Like you said earlier, it's the consistency, it's the patience, it's like these little habits. What matters, you know? If you look at the lifestyle of people you want to have similar success to, like, let's not focus on their big things. Let's focus on the little habits day to day. And I think it's really cool, you know, even just as we're talking, like, oh, I guess I also do this. Oh, I also do that. Because it's like, those are normal for you now. Those are patterns. And you've created those patterns, just like some people have created the pattern of checking social media. They have created the pattern of not shutting down work, which, you know, I've gotten better personally. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, but I'm so inspired, or oh, if I do it now, then I won't have to do it. And that's like a horrible mindset to have, guys. Don't do that, because there's always going to be more work to do, you know.
Right, exactly. I'm always like, I just want to get this done. Like, I just want to get that next thing done. But there's always going to be another thing that you will have to get done the next day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The biggest thing I've done for myself this year, because I'm similar to you, like I like the smaller, like set incremental goals, you know, and that makes everything easier because it becomes a new habit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do client check-ins in the morning, or like, I shouldn't even say check-ins. It's like a weird word for what I do. I would say like review everything my clients send me. And then I review it all at night too at a certain time. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Now I shut it off at this time in terms of responses, because I know I'm going to do it in the morning. So that helped me work through my own sabotaging pattern of let me just keep going. But it's important to have those rituals in place. And I like what you said too about not being so confined to what that ritual looks like. And sometimes that's difficult, especially when we're trying to form a new habit. I do believe it's important to have that consistency, but this is very connected, or maybe interwoven with nutrition. And you were talking about earlier, you know, when the show was canceled, this was a sign, and you stepped into this mindset of like, what else can I do with this time? And part of that was actually finding a new method, finding a new coach that could maybe meet your goals differently. So what was that like for you to actually move on from a coach? Because I imagine it would be like a breakup, you know, and like a whole rebuilding process. So, you know, how could someone be prepared for that?
Yeah, it was hard. And I think we had some of our calls about this too, because
Yes.
I was like, what do I do?
Yes.
And I listened to all your coach, what was that called? Like Coaches Week
series.
podcast?
Yes.
Coaches
series. Week.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. Shoot.
That was actually really helpful.
Okay.
Because I think when I was getting into bodybuilding, I was like, you know, let me just find someone quick who works, like, and let's just do it. Like I didn't research very much. And so the second time around, I was like, okay, I'm ready to make a change. You know, it's been a year and I was on a meal plan. And that's something I also learned about myself, that I cannot deal with the meal plan. Like I need to do macros, not like I eat crap, I'm not doing like
Right.
totally flexible, eating Fruit Loops all day to hit my carbs or whatever. But I was just like developing food guilt over, even if I switched out meats and like my protein still lined up, I still just like it just wasn't good for me. So I knew I needed a coach that did more of a macros approach. And I also had some issues with my coach at the time being like, don't worry that you don't have your period. It's normal, it's fine. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
based on everything I've learned and researched, it's not. So those are kind of two big things. And I was like, you know what? Again, like the competition being canceled, I'm like, let's just change up everything right now. Like, let's do it. So I did way more research this time. I talked to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different coaches and then made that change. But you're right. It was like a breakup. It was hard because a big thing kind of wanting to stay complacent was that, that coach had seen me through 2 preps. And so he knew my body well. And so you have to kind of say goodbye to that and start over, which sucks. But I think when like when you have that connection with someone, you just know. So really like listening, like doing your research, obviously, but then also I think talking to coaches that you're thinking about hiring is so important to see just like if you guys vibe, if you have a little bit of connection that you think you can trust that person and connect a little bit better. And so I kind of felt that and I was like, let's just do it. I don't care if this takes me back a little bit,
Yes.
I need to make the change. So.
And do you feel happy about that decision?
Yeah, I do. It's like I said, the hardest part is definitely feeling like you're starting over a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that's just part of it. If you got to accept that, if you want some stuff to change, like it's not always easy to make changes and it's not always going to be super smooth. But so far, I really like how I'm communicating with my coach now. And I like, how responsive he is and how much education is provided. Cause that's another thing I really need. Like as someone who knows a little something about, nutrition and fitness, I'm like, if you make a change, I want to know why we're doing that. And, or if we're waiting, like, please explain to me like why you're thinking that. And so that's been really awesome too. Cause I always want to learn more at the same time.
I think that's really great. I feel like we as athletes need to know what our needs are, just like in any relationship. You have maybe a certain language you like to speak. Maybe there's needs you have that need to be met that are different than your partner's needs. But that's the same thing with the coaching client relationship. I think it's important to understand, you may have learned, like you said, you learned, oh, actually meal plans aren't for me. That's fine. Now you can find someone who goes through with a macro approach, or maybe that someone else is listening and is like, oh, maybe I'll just ask my coach if they'll do macros. But it's like, at the end of the day, you have to make that decision that's best for you. And when you make that decision, like you said, yes, you're going to have to start over. Yes, there's a lot of challenging aspects to it, but it's also that freeing. There's like a freeing feeling. So it's like, I honored what I learned about myself enough to then take that step, which is challenging. And one of the things you've identified as something you need is that education. There's some girls who don't want to know anything about it. Like, don't tell me why you're changing. I'm sure you have clients like that. Like, you don't need to explain it. Just give it to me straight. And I'm one of those people that's like, I don't need you to tell me why things are the way they are, but I need you to reassure me as to why you're, doing this change for me. It's like, oh, we're leaving everything as is because you have, like, your body's still responding. Cool. That's all I needed to know. But like, some people prefer, a whole breakdown.
Yeah. And part of that is like, I think you and I have talked about before with hormone health, like you have to sometimes just like be an advocate for yourself and just be upfront about what you need, because any coach, whether it's a prep coach or mindset or whatever it may be, they don't always know immediately like what kind of learner you are, what you want from the situation. So being able to speak up for yourself, I think is like really important too, which, not to stereotype, but like women in general, that's typically something that a lot of women struggle with, is just like being very upfront and speaking up for like, hey, no, actually I do better with this, this, and this is what I need from you. There's nothing wrong with that.
You are hiring them. Like,
yeah, you're paying them. They work for you.
yes, girl, you made that money. Like, you're the one who's gonna spend it. So, spend it how you want. And obviously, there's level of respect that you have earned as a coach too. You're like, don't question me. I know you hired me for a reason. Let's do this. Let's commit. But then there's that other side. It's like, yes, advocate for yourself. If something is off, something is wrong, like, you have to be willing to say it. Some coaches too, they may not have that understanding that you have. And it actually could bring light, to them as to, oh, maybe I should be thinking about this more. Or maybe I can admit that I don't care about this and I should tell them to maybe see someone else. And that's important too. I think coaches have to be responsible that way as well. But, we live in a society and an industry that promotes dieting before it promotes health. It promotes looking a certain way before functioning a certain way. And so now you've decided to focus on your hormone health. You've been tracking though for a while, like temperature, ovulation, cycles, etc. One of your big goals now is to have a full prep with period. So what are you doing now? Like, how are you focusing on your hormone health?
Yeah. So I waited a couple weeks, I think at least like 6 to 8 weeks after my show to get blood work, because my first show, I did it right after. And then everyone was like, well, don't do that because it's going to be messed up. So I tried to wait like 6 to 8 weeks after my show, like work calories up. And then I got some new blood work, and I, actually I'm taking a course that was created by a functional medicine doctor that I kind of go back with because I've taken some of his hormone courses in the past. And so I asked him to kind of work with me on it. So he gave me some suggestions for, herbal supplements to add in, some changes to make to my diet, which one of the main ones was adding back in dietary fats and like specifically plant-based fats. So not necessarily adding in, like bacon and stuff, but
Right.
avocado, nuts, seeds, those things. And he's like, you've gotten a
Yes.
little bit stuck in that bodybuilder mindset where you think 60 grams of fat is like really, really high, when in reality, that's not very high. Okay. And I'm like, oh shoot, you're right. Cause we do just kind of get in those
new normals.
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of helped me through a couple of those things. And honestly, that's going back a second. That's also why I kind of switched coaches, is because I wanted a change in cardio. And this next prep I'm doing, we're trying to do just like all list cardio. Because I think the HIIT cardio is obviously can be awesome for fat burning and for maintaining muscle, but it's also way more stressful than list cardio. So my doctor and, my new coach were like, yeah, let's take that out. Let's do something different to lower the stress. So those were kind of the main things that I've been working on. I think obviously keeping calories up, getting fats up a little bit. I added in some supplements. And again, I'm trying to keep this kind of general because everyone is different. So the reason that I was losing my period might not be why somebody else was. We could have different blood markers doing different things. So I love working with a functional medicine doctor. So I would highly recommend that to anybody, like finding someone local or online, to try to just get to the root cause of like what's actually going on. And then let's try to treat that or repair that, because everyone is so different. Like, you've had guests on this podcast who are like, yeah, I got pregnant right after that show. It was crazy. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Dude,
Who are
I know
you
some
people?
girls who were pregnant on stage, like no
That's
joke,
insane.
and like killed it too. But it's like, and I'm not talking about like you can see they're pregnant, but they like figured out they were, pregnant. And so it's like, everybody's different. I appreciate, that it's general, because if someone were to apply, like, let's say someone, I like to think of like the psychology aspect as well. Let's say someone hates being in their own head and they haven't addressed the demons that come with that. Ooh, list cardio, girl, they don't want to be walking by themselves for an hour or whatever on an incline, even if they're watching TV, zoning out, getting back to clients, whatever it is they're doing. A lot of the times that could be scary. So like knocking out 20 minutes of HIIT. But on the contrary, someone would be like, finally, I can just like zone out for an hour, and I won't have to be done with cardio so fast. I can stay in the gym environment. I don't want to go home. I don't feel comfortable there. So there's a lot of other things that go into that, which can produce stress in other factors of our life.
True. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Everyone is just so different, whether it's hormones or like even your preferences or what you adhere to best, whether it's dieting or workouts. Yeah, there's such a wide range.
Yes, I did try seed cycling actually. So when
Oh, that
did
was another
he?
thing. Yeah,
Yes,
we added in flaxseed to like every day.
yes.
He was like, have flaxseed every day. It's like one of the seeds that's been actually studied to have those positive effects on hormones. Yeah.
That's actually something I've taken now. I've taken the flaxseed oil because I haven't, although the flaxseed oil supplement also has calories. So not that it's a big deal in terms of like if I had just had like raw flax or whatever, I just take a flaxseed instead of a fish oil because, man, one, I can't deal with the burps. I know even if I put it in the freezer, I just can't deal with the fish burps. I think it's so nasty. But also because I had the flax seeds and the seed cycling with the sunflower seeds and the pumpkin seeds and or pepitas, whatever you want to call them, but like it was a great, I like that tool a lot. It bumps your fat up immediately, which is awesome. It also, it tastes great on a lot of food. But I started taking the flaxseed in supplement form, and I got my period back again in this prep. I lost it for a while and I was like so bummed. Me and my coach were like, let's find a new normal. So talking about I've been through all these different things with my period myself where I'm like, I still don't know what the hell is like it's like, but it goes back to patience, right? Like
Oh
there's
my
gonna
gosh,
be
so hard.
phases. It's challenging, that's for sure, because you want nothing more than homeostasis. And so then when you don't have it and it's important to you, it exasperates the problem, makes it that much more important. And so then it's challenging, but we can't stress about the stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, if anyone is listening and they struggle with this, I would advise you to kind of deal with it before something happens down the line. Cause I think there are a lot of coaches, especially with, I feel like there are maybe more male coaches in the space than female. So I think it's easy for them to be like, it's not an issue, but there actually have been studies done. And like one was done on female swimmers, and they grouped them into two groups of like women who were still regularly cycling, and then those who were amenorrheic, who didn't have a period.
Mm-hmm.
And they tested their swim times. I think it was like a 400 meter or something over time. And the women who did not have a cycle actually got worse over time because like your body wasn't adapting the same to exercise and stuff. So if you want gains, you should probably get your period back too.
Yes, period gains.
Right?
Menstrual muscles, flex them.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah, like even like I'm not, this is not my area of expertise, but the things that I've heard about, hormonal birth control, things that actually prevent us from having normal cycles long term. Those are really intense topics that need to be discussed with the right people and people you're comfortable with discussing them with. And I think that if you're an advocate for yourself, you'll have no problem, because then you can advocate for yourself forever. So if there's one thing you can do today, advocate for yourself now, then you don't have to worry about it in the future. And like you said, there's going to be male coaches who say, it's okay, because I've had other girls who have had their period like multiple times in a month. That's also not okay. Right? Now we are on another problem. And so then you have coaches who will be like, even people who will be like, it's fine because it's normal. And that's what I justified for a long time. It's normal. It doesn't matter. But especially, when we're raised as athletes too, and we go through these different things with our body, we just kind of learn to it's like, oh, you just like landed on your ankle wrong and it's twisted. Wrap it up and get back on the court. Wrap it up and get back on the field, right? You were a rugby player, so I'm sure that was like normal. So it's like, you don't have your period. Well, wait until you like get your pro card. Wait until you do your pro debut. Wait, now it's too late. Now, like you said, your function is impaired. You have to go to extreme lengths to get it back. Hello, been there. Don't do it. Don't recommend.
Like a year, right?
Yeah, and it's like, oh man, what the heck? Now Corona hits, like I'm still not on the stage yet.
But that's why improvement seasons are so important, because that's when you can really focus on those things. Like when you get to take a break. Yeah.
So true.
There are trade-offs with prep, right? We all know this. And you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of your health to get stage lean, but
yeah,
you can get it back. You can repair your body during improvement season, take advantage of that.
Right. I guess, here we are preaching about period health. Meanwhile, we're like, it's fine if we're in this much of a deficit for some, it's like, okay, come on, let's be real about the whole thing. And I think that's important to, get into a certain level of leanness. For example, I actually want to talk to you about this specifically. There are things that sometimes get, I hate the word sacrifice, but they get put on the back burner a little bit. What are some things you notice naturally start to decrease or take the back burner when you're getting deeper into a prep?
I hate to say this, but the first thing that comes to mind is definitely my relationship with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is not into fitness. He never takes my nutrition advice.
Wow.
I
Is he
know.
listening right now?
No, definitely not. He will not listen to this podcast. No, he's just like naturally lean and very healthy, and he has an active job. So bodybuilding is very much my own thing. And I like that, but it also makes prep really hard because he definitely supports me. Like in Colombia when I won, he actually missed me winning my pro card because the classes, there wasn't a morning and night show. They did it all back to back, which was actually really awesome.
Yeah, that
so
is.
I won my class, and then I don't know, 15 minutes later had to go back on for overalls. And he missed the overalls because he snuck backstage to because he saw I won my class and he thought it was over. Like, he doesn't even understand what happened. But so he's very supportive, but it gets hard in prep when, you don't have date nights. I can't go out for a drink with him or anything. Sometimes I'm even too tired to go for a hike, outside. So that's probably one of the biggest trade-offs that I don't like, but it also just makes me that much more aware of that when I'm doing an off season or improvement season. I'm like, okay, I'm going to plan ahead these fun dates so that we have more time, so that I'm investing more in my relationship during the off season, because I know I can't as much during prep. So that's probably the biggest one that stands out to me as far as trade-offs.
How long have you been married?
Only just over 2 years.
So right when you started competing?
Pretty much.
Wow. And how long had you been dating before that?
I guess 3 years before that we had been dating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had to experience this transition in life and the relationship.
Yeah. And he had seen me, because gradually I got more and more into CrossFit and more into nutrition. But then when I made the bodybuilding switch for a competition, I actually sat him down because I did a ton of research about what prep actually is like. And I wanted to mentally prepare because I had dieted before, but never with added cardio or with such an expectation at the end.
Yeah.
So I actually sat him down and I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is what it might look like. Are you okay with this? And, because I will take on all the responsibility of cooking so that you don't have to deal with whatever I'm eating. I'll take care of the grocery shopping, but it could get a little crazy. And he definitely feels it towards the end of prep. He was like, last prep, I Googled, what actually causes hanger and what that is. he's like, did you know you're getting moody because actual irritability is actually a symptom of dieting, and that's why you're angry right now? And I'm like, oh my God, shut up.
You're like, this is the last thing I want to hear. I'm irritated times 10 now.
I know.
That's so sweet though. He genuinely, supports you and cares. And I mean, the fact that he would look that up, that's hilarious.
I know, because he's like, how do I deal? He probably Googled how do I deal with a super hangry wife or something.
I think I overcompensate. When I get really deep into prep, I get so emotional. I mean, this could be just hormonal, but I get so emotional. I'm loving on everybody. I'm treating people hey, maybe my body's hey, this could be the last time you see me. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is sounding like a goodbye letter. But yeah, I think we all go through our own thing, and it's important to have someone who understands what our own thing looks like, or have a group of people. And some people say your partner, your husband, they need to be able to do the exact lifestyle as you. They need to be regimented so they can support you. You can't have a partner who drinks beer, doesn't follow their nutrition plan. I was like,
Right.
excuse me, why can't I make my own decisions? So I want to hear your perspective on that. What is it like to have a husband with such different lifestyle values and goals and, I guess, perspective than you?
It's challenging. Like, sometimes I think it would be easier if he was into fitness and into nutrition, but at the same time, I really like that it's my own thing. And as long as he can get on board and be like, okay, I understand you're doing this, and this is what this next couple months might look like. As long as he can do that, then that's really all I need at the end of the day. So like, I do get jealous sometimes if couples are like, we're both prepping together and it's so great and we meal prep together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm jealous. But yeah, I'm used to us being opposites because we're like opposites in literally everything. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
So we work on it though. We take time to acknowledge each other's strengths and weaknesses. Like I said, I'm very upfront with being like, this is what I need from you. This is what I'm trying to do. So obviously you don't need your partner to be in the same boat as you because I'm doing it, but I think there's pros and cons like everything else,
Yes.
You got to make it work with you and your life and what's going on.
Yeah. And I'm curious, do you plan on, I mean, there's no answer, but like right or wrong answer, probably you don't even know. It's hard to say, but like, do you want to compete for as long as you possibly can? Or do you have like a mental stop on this?
That's a great question. I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is that I want to have kids at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And your Mother's Day series was so helpful.
Oh, good.
Because I go back and forth a lot. I'm like, do I just push really hard this year? And this year is like not the year to push hard with Corona.
Yeah.
So I guess I do have shows picked out for this fall. So I do want to at least do my pro debut, see how I stack up. And I think I'm just going to have to go from there. But I'm also not super young. I'm like 28. So I have that pressure building.
Yeah.
When do I take a break?
Do you feel more pressure building around age in bodybuilding or in getting pregnant?
In getting pregnant.
Okay. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. And because I love my body so much, so it pains me to say this, but I haven't been super kind to it,
Yeah.
like as far as not always putting my health first. And that's, I think, okay. And I'm happy with the choices that I've made in my life, but it's also on my mind as if I do take a break from competing and try to get pregnant, like, will it be easier? Will it be really hard? I don't know.
Yes.
So just, I guess, yeah, I'm really open-ended about that. I'm not sure what that's going to look like as far as next couple of years for me. Yeah.
I admire your vulnerability. Like, you've been consistently vulnerable this whole show, like this whole episode, and that means so much to me because this is like what we need to hear. We're all humans. I feel like we're all connected in this way, and it's nice to know, like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not crazy for thinking that, or oh my gosh, like, I'm not the only one going through it. And we're scratching the surface, but this is awesome because, like, when you talk about what you're going through mentally and you think about that process or what that's going to look like, you talk about the pressure you're experiencing. You also know, like, at least when I'm watching you talk and I'm hearing you talk, I'm also thinking, oh, she's probably wondering, if it does take a long time now, what does that mean for bodybuilding? Well, what am I going to have to,
because then do you like go back?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. No one can predict the future. So what are you going to do? Just got to do my best this year, right? For this season.
Exactly. Yep. That's right. It's going to be your usual amazing success, visualizing, doing what you do, which is awesome. And you're bringing a whole new mindset, a whole new relationship with food, a different approach, which is super cool. And it's going to be awesome to see how that works out for you. It's like a whole new learning experience.
It is. And like you were saying earlier about, the tennis analogy, like that is another thing that I was really excited when working with you, because I'm like, just imagine when I prep next time without having any disordered eating habits and like having a stronger mindset, like what what am I capable of now? Let's find out.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how I felt. I always was like, well, if I just address this one thing in my life, imagine how much better everything else will be. And it's like that one thing is so scary sometimes to address. It's so much, again, safer to not address it. And then you do, and you're like, yes, okay, I was right. It's going to be so much better. And so I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in things I wanted to ask you. Actually, on the topic of starting a family, where's your husband at with all that? Like, what's his opinion on how you approach your health and that?
He is so easygoing and chill. So that's another reason I said we're opposites, because I'm like kind of high strung and a perfectionist.
How did you guys meet? Wait, let me ask you that.
Yeah. We met as raft guides. So
okay.
I moved out to Colorado. I was working a corporate job that I didn't like. And I was like, I'm going to be a raft guide and live in a tent. So that's kind of why I moved out here. And that's how we met, because he was already working at that company. So it makes sense that he was like a 13-year raft guide, like super chill, super, Colorado dirtbag. And I came from the corporate world in the Midwest. So it was just crazy. So, but love is love, right?
Yes.
But with kids, so that's kind of the standpoint he takes too. He's like very just open about it. He's like, I think when you're ready, you'll know, and we can talk about it then. And I'm kind of open to maybe never having kids or having a couple kids. And I'm like, okay, that's very helpful. Great.
Great. I'll make all the decisions from here.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. I'll just make all the decisions. Yeah. By myself.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I'm really appreciative that you would share that, and be so open, like I said before. And there's obviously a question I haven't asked yet that a lot of people love when I ask, which is, if you could only pick one exercise for your glutes, hamstrings, and shoulders, what exercise would you pick for each?
Okay. Let's see. Glutes first. I would pick single leg hip thrusts. Because I love unilateral movements, because we do so many bilateral movements.
Yes.
That I think it really helps with balance and coordination. And they're like crazy hard, right? You can do body weight and it's killer for single leg. So that's probably my favorite for glutes. Hamstrings would be probably if you do hamstring curls, but with your heels in TRX straps at the gym.
Yes.
So your butt is lifted off the ground and you're, curling your heels towards your butt in the TRX straps. Those are so hard.
That's next level.
That's a good one. Yeah. If you ever need a new hamstring builder, do those. They kill. And then shoulders. I know a lot of people say Arnold press, so I'm not going to pick that one. That's a good one.
I usually like Arnold press or lateral raises.
I know. What I've liked lately, though, is we totally changed up my programming. Lately, I've been doing a lot of different stuff in the gym, which has been really exciting. And one thing that was on my program recently was push press with slow eccentrics.
Oh.
So you're driving overhead and then you're timing yourself on the way down to be nice and slow. And that is way harder than you think. I had to go so light, and eccentrics is another thing that I think a lot of people don't train with, kind of timing or pauses. And so that was something just really fun to add in. And I can do a lot of compound lifts because I'm still small and need to build. So the fact that I could add in push press too was just really fun.
Yes. Muscle PhD. That's his name on Instagram. I'm saying that so people could go and reference, but I believe his name is Jacob Wilson, but he shared a study that was done on the growth that occurs in the different phases of movement. And the eccentric is the most important for actually creating growth in the muscle. So a lot of times, people will not pay attention to tempo at all, period, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But like in the eccentric movement, so like if you're doing a bicep curl, it'd be on the way down, because it's hard to like demonstrate this through voice, but like on the way down, in that eccentric movement, if you're going slower, those muscle fibers are tearing and tearing and tearing and tearing the whole entire way down. That's going to create more growth over time. So he shared a great study on it. If you guys are interested in looking at it, it's very cool.
Yeah, you don't want to just give in to gravity. You want to kind of like fight.
That's a great way
gravity
of
in your movements. Yeah, so that's a good one.
Yes, I love that, and thank you for sharing those movements. I don't know. There was one as you were talking, and I was like, oh, I just thought of another shoulder movement I really like that I used to do in improvement season, where it's like you take the weight and I'm showing it on video now.
I know.
But you like take the weight like in front of you and then you go around and up like that. Paige Riley did it.
I don't know. Are they like half circles? What do you call those?
I guess so. I call them around the world, but I don't
Or like bus driver. No, that's this thing. I don't know.
I in my phone notes, it would be like over the top of the chair shoulder, and I was like, forget it, I'm not gonna name it, it's a shoulder circle. But yeah, like I don't know, just like coming up and around, almost like you're doing a thumb up lateral raise into like a pouring the teapot type of finish.
Good description, there you go.
Yes. Yeah, no, I used to do personal training, and you have to come up with some weird stuff,
right?
So anyway, I think I asked you everything I wanted to other than the advice, which I'll get to. But was there anything else you wanted to share or feel like I should have asked you?
I think we covered a lot of stuff. I like where we're at. Yeah, I think a big takeaway is, don't be afraid to ask for help and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Those are hopefully people got that out of the episode.
I love that. Oh, so true. So applicable to everything that we talked about. So now what is your best advice for a girl who has never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for a girl on her road to pro?
I'd say if someone has never competed before, do research, read some blogs about competing, about what prep is like, which I have a bunch on tailoredcoachingmethod.com. Check them out. But along with that, build your support system. Like I said, how I sat down my husband, I did the same thing with my family because I knew my mom was going to hate it, which she did, because moms just don't like it when their kids diet, I think. But like that was really helpful for me to just straight up ask people for support. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's going to be tough. I might not be the most fun to be around because I can't, have a bunch of cake and beer or whatever. But just creating that support circle for you. I think that's so, so huge going into your first show. And then someone who wants to go pro, I think just in general, anyone at the more advanced level should, like we talked about, periodize your nutrition over a year. So if you want to go for your pro show X date, make sure that the time before that, obviously you mark out for prep, but then before that, try to spend the rest of your year actually improving your physique. I think that's just so underrated, and we all want to rush into shows. I'm guilty of that too, for sure. But the more time that we take out of a diet is when we can focus on health, focus on relationships, focus on improving every aspect of our life that needs a little love, and then go all in on your prep. So just periodize everything over time.
I love that. That's amazing advice and so appreciated. And I would love for everybody else to be able to connect with you. You shared your website, which is awesome. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes page. Can you give your Instagram handle as well?
It is Caroline Ofenstein _TCM, which hopefully Celeste will link for us too, because it's hard to spell.
Yes, I will absolutely do that. No problem. And so for those of you listening, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you go to the category section, you'll see her name. If you are looking for it, you can always just message me and I'll send it to you. But if you're listening to this right away, it's going to be at the very top. All the links are there, the show notes, everything. So make sure you guys check that out. Definitely show Caroline some love. Tag us on Instagram as you listen, or maybe after, with some of your main takeaways, because we love that. Stroke the ego, feels good. No, just kidding. But it's very fulfilling and empowering for all of us. And I appreciate you guys listening. Caroline, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.